Welcome to the Racing Nuggets podcast. I'm PJ Noodleman, joined by my sometimes co-host, but I'm damn glad he's here tonight. It's Dan Plan and our guest, Brad Both. Hey, guys.
Hello.
Hi.
So, Brad, you are with Cedar Lake Speedway. You're one of the co-owners there. Who all is involved in the ownership there at that track?
Just me. Just me.
It is just you.
No,
Okay.
no, I'm just kidding. It's Bob Kaufman and myself, and his brother Chuck. So, and then we've been together for 25 years now. And Chris Heimbuch joined us probably about 5 years ago. He joined the clan here. So there's four owners now, and soon there will be three. Chuck has probably decided to actually take some early retirement in about 2 years. So we're going to have him for 2 more years, and then it'll be down to three unless we have another person join us. So
How does that work when you have like group running things?
that's a great question. Ironically, I would say it works out pretty well. I've known Bob for a long time. We worked in corporate finance for, no, man, 20 some years, maybe 30 years. And Chuck has a background in healthcare. And we used to have their other brother, Steve Kaufman, was actually involved in the racetrack. But he actually, we bought him out probably about 7 years ago, 6, 7 years ago. So we all have, even though it's a weird dynamic, but we have the conservative, we have a little bit of a middle ground. They have kind of a more of a liberal. I don't know if we want to use liberal because that's, we could probably talk about that, but we have different dynamics about
Liberal in
ourselves.
the financial sense, not the political sense.
Well, that's a good,
Ah.
yes, thank you. Good point. Yeah.
Very good point.
Yeah.
So your actual day job then is like doing
No,
financial?
no. Well, yeah, that's true. Well, so I used to do it for about 30 years, and then I have pseudo retired, I would say it. I actually now work at the racetrack full time now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So did you always have involvement with the racing as a kid? I mean, how did you first get exposed to racing where you're like, damn, I like this?
Oh, let's see. A long story, real quick, is that my dad and his brother, or his brother Keith, actually did some racing back in the day, and my dad always had a love of the sport, and so we would go see some races once in a while, and jump forward. I used to go to Daytona a long time ago, so for many, many, many years, and everybody knew I was a big race fan. I grew up in Baldwin, Wisconsin, which is not that far away from New Richmond. And I know it sounds very, very probably far-fetched here, but on a summer night, if the wind was blowing perfectly, you could actually hear the racetrack all the way in Baldwin, which was, like that's literally like 15 miles away. But I mean, if the wind was perfect, you could actually hear it. You're like wondering, what's that sound, whatever else, and you would hear it. So
I have cousins that have grew up on a farm in Star Prairie, and
yeah,
same story.
yeah.
When we were out there, you could hear the race cars, and
So
I didn't want to be at the farm. I wanted to.
So that's, I mean, so when I was approached by Bob and Steve originally to buy the racetrack, or we were going to buy a business together, let's put it that way. It was originally supposed to be a restaurant in downtown Stillwater, and I really quickly said no. I mean, I love to eat, but I don't know a thing about running a restaurant or whatever else, and nor do I want to be there every single day. So we turned that down, and then later on, we actually talked about buying a racetrack. And as soon as they said the name of the racetrack, I didn't even have to, I didn't have to take a moment's notice. I said sure. So
So have you ever raced?
no, no, no. I just like to yell at the guys. That's all I do.
Well, we'll get into that in a bit.
Yeah.
How did you first meet Dan Plan?
Ooh, that's a great question. Do you remember?
I was probably after I bought the paper.
Yeah.
I mean, you didn't call me Rob, but
No, I never call you Rob. I called
And
you
the
Gene, but I
paper-
never called you.
The paper is obviously the Midwest Racing Connection.
Yeah, so that's, I mean, I knew Rob back in the day when he owned the paper, Rob Hahn, and when it transitioned over to Dan, I'm pretty sure that's how we probably got introduced.
Nice. And that was kind of the Mutual Admiration Society. I know Dan's got a very important his own little press box up there now. It's like a VIP suite of some sort.
Yeah, he's got his own suite. He has, he has his papers distributed at the racetrack, both on the front and backstretch, and people just can't live without it. So that's why we continue to advertise, we continue to work together, and he always talks nice about me in the paper, which is always a good plus. So,
Dan actually told me a story, and I'll let him elaborate on it if he wants to. But you have served multiple roles at the same time during a
Oh,
race.
I'm known for listening to my radio at the pavement races because guys have spotters, so it's entertaining to listen to. But on the dirt tracks, the drivers don't have radios, but they have the receiver. And there's been several times where Brad is doing the race directing and the announcing. And so
mm.
it's kind of weird to hear the guy that's telling the drivers where to line up in your headphones and then hear him on the speaker 2 seconds later. And seems like something you could really get messed up and hit the wrong button and say the
Oh,
wrong thing.
I'm sure I have. I'm sure I've used some colorful language sometimes.
Would you say that you're liked by most of the folks that race there?
The racers?
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Yeah.
Actually, um, you know, I think it's a group effort. I just because I own the racetrack doesn't mean I should be liked or not liked or whatever else. But at the same time, I need the racers to work with me to put on an event. And I need to put on a good event for the guys to come to race. So obviously I have to put on, number one, I give them a good racing surface because it's dirt, or clay. And in the same fashion too, I have to pay, what they'll always argue that I'd never pay them enough. And I understand that, but be that as it may, it's a hobby. It's fun. It's a good way it's a pastime. It's what I call Americana. It's something that I've always thought was wonderful to be involved with. And you can't get this anywhere else outside of, playing maybe baseball in the summertime. It's just something that just resonates with America. So,
Absolutely. What do you love most about dirt racing over asphalt racing?
oh, now you went right there right away. I mean, you know, I've been to lacrosse. I've been, as I mentioned earlier, I've been to Daytona. I've been to some bigger tracks like Bristol and Daytona, Talladega. I've been to some other tracks in Phoenix, whatever else. But for short track race and for short track races, I've been to lacrosse, the old days, Fergus Falls. Trying to think where else I've been.
I saw you at Raceway Park one time.
Yes, that's true. I have been to Raceway Park. That was, probably one of the first things I probably ever was, ever introduced to was when my dad took me to Raceway Park. It's just, it's different racing, but it's the same mentality. It's different racing. Obviously, it's different racing. And I really don't want to put myself into a pigeonhole to say, one versus the other, but I think that it's really fun to watch, guys, cross over from, dirt or to asphalt. It's fun to see, them learning, to see that how different it is. I'll be biased. Of course, I love dirt racing only because I think there's more opportunity to screw up. I mean, I like that fact from my perspective that it's almost like I don't know how you want to say it. It's like college basketball or college football. There's always something that's going to screw up in a game, some way, whatever else. That's what I think dirt racing, can actually throw at some people once in a while. Is that if you don't have your setup right, you will be obviously known that you didn't set up right.
Yeah.
Whereas maybe in asphalt, I can't say this for a fact, but I think you can hide it a little bit. But there's obviously there's goods and there's pros and cons to both sides of racing, and I won't say anything bad about asphalt. So don't
No, no,
don't try,
no.
don't try to
No,
pigeonhole me.
that's what that's what I've liked about Brad through the years is I've seen him at I've seen him at Raceway Park in Shakopee when that was open, and I've seen him at Oktoberfest. Ran into him at New Smyrna during Speed Week, so
Yeah.
he's just a race fan, right? He just happens to own a dirt track.
Yep.
And he's fun to hang out with.
Well, yeah,
Oh
well,
yeah.
yeah, well, you got to come up and when they have the pit exit bonfire. So those are entertaining.
Those are
too.
usually
Those are
pretty
fun,
good. Yeah.
fun to hang
Yeah.
out
Well,
at.
Dan has told me an awful lot about the goings on at Cedar Lake, and I need to get up there. I know I do. And now
When
that I
was the
know he,
last? Have you ever been?
mm-mm, no,
Ever?
No, I'll have a rookie stripe when I get there.
Ugh.
And by
So,
But
that, I
now
don't
I've said
mean
now
what,
that
so we should plan that right now for 2025.
well, and her husband's always busy working on weekends, but now that like Kakana or State Park isn't running on Thursdays, I think there's an opportunity to maybe get Toby and Jacqueline up there
There you
for
go.
well.
Masters or USA Nationals on a Thursday or Friday night.
Right, right.
So,
I was
but
going to kind of ask you a little bit about your schedule here for 2025.
Okay.
What's on tap? What are some of the like your regular nights? And specifically, what are some of the big specials? Because I know Dan kind of mentioned a few of them to me. I'd like to have you both kind of expound upon that right now.
Okay. Well, you're gonna have to remind me if I skip over something, by the way. We kick off our season, we're usually one of the first ones to kick off our season in the beginning of April. So if this year holds firm with like last year, like okay, so today when we are recording this podcast in early January and or excuse me, late January, excuse me, and we are slotted to actually begin our racing in early April. The same thing, if we were to do mimic the same thing as last year, we would probably open right away, which is April 5th, and we go all the way through September. So from beginning of April through September, we race weekly, and we have lots of specials, as you mentioned. But yeah, we have. Like I said, it's weather permitting, of course. Last year we were able to open right away at the beginning of April. A lot of years, of course, as most tracks are involved, know about this, is that April's kind of a hit and miss month. You have snow, you have cold, it's just miserable sometimes. We'll see what this year brings. I'm hoping that we have basically this. I'm the antithesis of a farmer. I love drought weather. So if we get no more, not a lot much more snow and whatever else, and the frost comes out of the ground somewhat quickly, we'll probably start racing right away in April. I'm trying to think. We kick that off. We have a couple races right off under our belt in April. Have our legendary opener, which is a 2-day special in the middle of April or the end of April.
Which
We have
days
our
are those?
Oh gosh, you're gonna
No, no,
ask
I
me.
mean like is it like Friday, Saturday?
Friday,
What?
Saturday.
yeah.
Yeah,
Friday,
Friday,
Saturday.
Saturday. Sorry. Um, and for those of you that are watching, if you ever want to check our schedule, you could, instead of listening to me talk about what the dates are, we have our schedule is posted on cedarlakespeedway.com already. Um, we, fast forward into May, probably our biggest single day event that we have of the year is called the school bus race event that we have in the middle of May. Actually, it's May 10th this year. Um,
Whoa,
that's
school
that's
buses
crazy.
on dirt?
Yeah, that's fantastic. It was
Like,
just yeah, it's we get local schools. Last year we had 10, I think it was 10 schools, but 12 participants, and we also have community buses for the local area buses that want to participate as well. And it's just a great time. We were just featured on PBS Wisconsin this past week, which was fun to see. Got a lot of coverage that way as well from last year. Yeah, that kind of rounds out our May that we have. It's really kind of fun because we get the schools involved individually with their students. We at Cedar Lake actually buys the bus ourselves, and we donate the buses to the schools, and the schools the shop class as well as the arts department gets together, and they work on the buses by taking out the seats, they take out all the glass, they work on the engine a little bit, they modify it a little bit, even though I tell them not to. And then they paint them, they decorate them. It's really kind of fun. It's a great time. It's fun to get the community involved as much as possible with our racetrack. So
The
I love that. I think that's awesome.
yeah,
it's unbelievable how I've seen the bus race grow. And for me as a race fan, they still have usually each year they rotate two different regular racing divisions in. So there's regular racing, but the main attraction is the bus race. And several years ago, Brad explained it to me because I just couldn't believe how big the crowd is. And it's like every town or community that has a bus, it's like the football game. So they're all coming out to cheer
yeah.
on their team. And it's you just can't imagine how many people get squeezed in there on bus race
Oh yeah.
night.
Oh,
That's brilliant, though, to get the kids involved with getting the buses fixed up. Everybody's got some skin in the game and somebody to cheer for then.
oh yeah, for sure. I mean, it's 2 years ago, we also had, you ever heard of something called Barstool Sports?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so they came out probably about 3 years ago now, and they came out and did a segment at the racetrack during that event. And it was really fun to have them involved as well. It got more coverage than we ever thought. And I mean, literally, it was, a blessing, for any kind of promoter out there, it was a blessing in disguise because I mean, we ran out of tickets. I couldn't sell more general admission tickets. I was just taking money. I was just saying, okay, get in there. Let's go. Just get in there. Give me your money. Get in there. Watch the races.
That's
So,
awesome.
yeah.
You've got a big one coming up, I know, the USA Nationals.
Yeah, that's later on in the year. That's the big one that we have, I think, this next year. That's in the first weekend of August. And we are increasing our pay. Now that's a pretty nationally known race. It's what they call a crown jewel. It's a big late model race that pays a lot. And yeah, we for years we've paid $50,000 to win, which is a sizable amount of money for one race. But this year we are upping our to win amount to $100,000.
How were you able to do that?
I'm being on podcasts like this and being able to charge people for watching.
Nice.
No, no. No, it's just a matter of time, as progression, we've had this race at 50,000 to win for ever since I bought the racetrack and 25 years ago. So, as time goes on, of course, you have to adjust and make changes. And this was something that we, foresaw probably about 4 or 5 years ago, and we try to keep it at what we wanted to do was we want to actually increase the pay towards the back markers. And we did that. To start the race, you're going to start racing at $3,000 to start. So, everybody in that 24 car count field is going to get paid $3,000 minimum. And it just keeps on climbing from, say, 10th spot on up. And then with the winner now this year to be up at $100,000.
Nice. Who would you say is one of the most well-known local racers that has actually kind of achieved some significant fame, but kind of cut their teeth there at Cedar Lake?
Ooh, who would you say?
On the national scale, it'd probably be
Jimmy Mars?
Jimmy
Yeah.
Mars. I mean, but years ago, I mean, Tom Nesbitt ran
Oh God,
all
yeah.
over the place,
Yeah.
and he had a year where he had a bounty on him at Cedar Lake. So I think cousin Pat ran World of Outlaws one year, and now Brent's running World of Outlaws too. So
Yeah.
there's been several weekly racers at Cedar Lake that have gone on to do some of the national stuff.
Yeah, I would say that, oh, I mean, so let me be very clear. If I can segue back a little bit, that
Yeah.
USA Nationals, we actually sanctioned that with the World of Outlaw late model series. And we also work with the World of Outlaw Sprint Car Series, which is at the end of June this year. It's June 28th and 29th. But to get back to the USA Nationals, from that perspective, is that we're paying 100 grand. That event right there, like I said, is a crown jewel. So we used to get quite a few racers that have come up through dirt racing. If you want to talk about, a Tony Stewart type person, I would say probably the most famous would, probably recently, I would say would be Tyler Reddick. Tyler
Yeah,
Reddick
he ran one
actually,
year.
he came when, I mean, he was a California kid and he had freckles and he was probably 100 pounds dripping wet back in the day. And he was maybe 16, maybe at the top at his top age. And he was touring around, goodness me, it was probably about 10 some years ago, more than that. And, so, we've seen a lot of guys come through Cedar Lake Speedway. I'm sure just like any other racetrack around the area,
Like
but
Austin Dillon, when McDowell was tutoring him, came and ran one year. So
yeah. So we've literally had, the big names, you bring in the big names to kind of, sell big shows like a Tony Stewart, Jeff Gordon, Dale Earnhardt Jr. We've had all those guys there. And but at the same time, just for simple racing, I've seen, we've had Kenny Schrader. I know you've had him on your podcast. I've seen that. He's been at the racetrack numerous times, either racing or just spectating. Who else have we had actually there?
I think of that night, yeah, it was like Schrader and Kenny Wallace were there, and then there was the 3M guys, I think, like Biffle and
Kenseth
didn't race, but they were Kenseth did.
We've had
Blaney-
Kenseth and
Blaney came that one night, so yeah.
So there's been lots of big names that have come through there, but yeah, we've had a lot of guys that, just in the region, I would say we've got probably, I would say in the region of dirt late model, modified, racing, we've got some pretty significant names that have come through Cedar Lake. Yeah.
That's awesome. What is the youngest age someone can run at Cedar Lake in any one of the divisions?
So great question. How do I put this? They should be about 16 years old. And I say should be because everybody tells me that their kid's 16 when they pull in, but I can never really tell if they're really 16. I've had some people lie to me and tell me that their kid was 16 or whatever else, but and I won't say who they are. But no, I've had guys that, as young as 14, or gals. I mean, I've seen even gals actually start early. So it's not anything that, we let's put it this way. If a driver or a kid, quite honestly, that's what they are, kids. Anything underneath 25 to me is a kid now. But if you're a kid and you're a good driver, I would say that I'm not going to tell you not to race if you want to. In fact, I would encourage you to race to get some seat time. And frankly, what I also do is I also say, you know what? How about if we start in the back and we just see how you handle it? And as we progress, we are an unsanctioned racetrack. We were NASCAR sanctioned for a lot of years. We were involved with SOTA for a lot of years. We are currently unsanctioned in 2025. So I can kind of pick and choose whatever battles I want to do. We do obviously have, rules and packages that we have. But as far as age, if you are, somewhat qualified, I have no problem. As long as you can actually prove that you're worth, I have no problem with that.
That's cool. That is cool. It's funny how kids would lie to be able to race, but parents will lie about their kids' age in order to get them in at the gate for a lower price.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Kid's 6 foot tall. No, really, he's only 5.
Yeah, that's the other thing is 11-year-olds are already 6 foot tall these days, so I don't know what to say. So
Indeed. Has Dan Plan ever raced at your track?
Mike
yeah.
Wilson let me run his vintage car there about 10, 15 years
Did you ever
ago.
do an enduro?
I did not do an enduro.
Okay.
No, just ran a vintage race in Mike Wilson's old coupe.
Say
That was
more. How did that go, Dan?
that was scary because he had me instead of running with the stock cars, he goes, those guys are going to run like it's a Daytona 500 and run over each other. So he had me run with the super modifieds and sprint cars, which were significantly faster and far more talented than my skill level. So, yeah, that was an experience. But I think I only got lapped once. I ran the whole feature and
That's
uh,
impressive.
didn't need to change my diaper and
That's also
made it
very impressive.
made it through the night. So,
Nice. So I know Cedar Lake is probably one of your more favorite tracks that you go to. And I know proximity obviously plays a role in that, but still, I know that that track means a lot to you, Dan. Why do you like Cedar Lake so much?
mainly because that's where, I went there a lot when I was younger with my dad. And then, in the late 79, they dropped the super late models at Elko for the first time. And so basically from like 1980 till 87, that's where I went every weekend with my dad was Cedar Lake. And it's the second closest track, now without Raceway Park around to home. So growing up in Cottage Grove, it was close to home, and where I'm at now in Egan, it's still less than an hour away. So it's close. And now my son lives in Roberts, so we meet there several times during the year for regular weekly shows, and he'll come out for the Masters and the Nationals and stuff. So it's
That's
more of a
cool.
family thing, I think, for me.
That's cool. I like that. Brad, what's your favorite part about owning the track?
Ooh,
Probably having the Midwest racing connection.
probably having Dan Plan there. Yeah, right.
Sure.
Um, it's somewhat, I would say it's a undescribable feeling sometimes when you actually have and I don't mean this in a weird way, but you find something that you actually really enjoy to do. It's like when you finally find your job, whatever else that you really, really enjoy, and it's fun and you love it and whatever else, man, that's not you're when you go to it, you don't even think of it as a job. So, everything from the fans to the racers, to even the employees that work for us. I mean, we have a fantastic group of family and friends that still work for us. The Cooks used to own the racetrack, of course, for many, many years. And we still have, Marge Cook still works at the racetrack for us. And even her daughter works for us. And we have many, Terry Cook also works out there. So there's a lot of people that still love racing and whatnot. And it's just when you have the ability to own something, and I know this doesn't maybe make sense, but when I actually talk to the employees, and I don't even, I mean, that's a weird term, but when I have the people that work for me and work for the rest of us guys at the racetrack, and they actually talk about, when they make references like they own the racetrack, they say this is our racetrack, and I'm like, that's really cool. I mean, that's probably the one thing that I think is really, really, endearing to me, is that I find that the people that work for me, they actually find this as just as much as their place as it is mine. Even though I own the racetrack along with Bob, Chuck, and Chris, at the end of the day, that's who owns it. But really at the what I find endearing, like I said, is people that work there. They almost take just as much ownership as I do.
That's what
That's
I think.
pretty cool.
I've heard Greg McCarnes use the term the family farm, and that's what Cedar Lake reminds me of too. Because I've seen your son and daughter
Yeah,
working in the popcorn stand,
yeah,
and Kaufman's families that work there, and like with Marge still working there, and Bob, rest his soul, Bob Cook, when he was working there, I'd still, he hadn't owned the track in 20 years, but when he was around, he'd still be there mopping up the backstretch concession stand after the race is over, like he owned the joint. He'd be out there cleaning up all the dust, but he didn't own it anymore. He just worked there. And
yeah, yeah.
I mean, that's what's the family farm mentality definitely applies to a lot of short tracks, I think.
Yep.
Yeah. The thing too about family farms is to make sure that you have that next generation interested and invested enough to keep that torch lit, right? So do you feel like you have that kind of in place or
Ooh,
percolating to kind of keep things rolling well beyond your time around?
that's oh man. I don't know. It's been touch and go with my family. All of my kids, as well as Bob's kids and Chuck's kids, they're all like I think. Well, Bob's and my kids are all probably in college or have been beyond college. Chuck's kids are all out of college or married. Chris might have some thoughts about that. He's like I said, he's the latest owner. He might have some thoughts about that. I don't know if I see anything of my family really participating unless they really, really want to. But I just don't know. I don't know. That's a great question. I don't see it right now in the next 5 years, but after that, maybe. I don't know.
Well, and I think even beyond that, it sounds like you've got kind of a next generation already very loyal to the track. So, I mean, even that torch could be passed to, I mean, I don't want to make it simplified, but I mean, even a kid who's working in your popcorn stand today might get the business ignition and going in them and decide that they want to, kind of learn from you. And
Well, I'll be fair about this, is that I make my son or my daughter work for me sometimes. I mean, there's some arm twisting, and just like every small business, it seems like, in the past couple of years, is that like, I mean, it's just hard to find people to work. So you got to
yeah,
do your best to try to figure out how you're going to get people to work, and pay them a halfway decent wage or whatever else. So part of it also is that, you try to treat people and give people the ability, like I said, to be owners or whatever, feel like they're owners or feel like they're a part of the racetrack, and, have fun. I mean, at the end of the day, I do I, you know, I just like to have people there and enjoy themselves, really. I mean, if you're not
yeah.
enjoying yourselves there working, then you're probably not going to be lasting there very long. So I got to figure out a way to do that where, I'm helping them with maybe giving them improvements, whether it's a new stove or a new, oven or a new whatever it might be, if they're working back in the kitchen, or if it's, up in the towers, maybe some new equipment for announcing, or you name it, so.
I don't want to necessarily get into all the technical minutia about this, but it's something that I do like to bring up because I think the average fan doesn't realize just what a huge expense insurance can be. So, is that a big part of your annual budget to be able to cover insurance for all aspects of the track?
Yeah, I don't know exactly what well, it's funny you bring this up because every racetrack is probably right in the midst of getting your your new insurance policy and your new premium because it's somewhat stupid because you'll come out with a season schedule and you've already announced exactly what your ticket prices are, but you don't really get a renewal on your insurance until almost April. And, we're opening our gates in April. So I'm almost kind of hogtied as far as what I have to pay for insurance. The liability insurance is really obviously the biggest thing for us is that we have to make sure that we have the adequate coverage in case there is an accident at the racetrack. What I'm really talking about is not only the participant insurance that you have to have, but also for people that maybe are just sitting in the stands. And if they happen to get whether asphalt or dirt, I'm sure it's the same thing. But for dirt, there's a lot of debris that flies up and gets kicked up by these race cars. So, yeah, there is some significant cost there. Um, is that a big thing? Sure, it is a big thing. But we just kind of, we just kind of budget that every year is that we know it's going to increase by, certain amount every year or whatever else. I would say, yeah, it's a sizable number. Yeah, no, there's no
Mm-hmm.
doubt about that. It's not like you can go out and race a whole year on $10,000 worth of coverage. That's for sure. You don't
Yeah.
have that. So
Yeah, I like to point that out because I think anybody, and I don't know how many racers that you have that kind of squawk and whine about payout or whatever, and I get it. Everybody wants to be paid more for what they're doing, but I don't think people always have the big picture of what it costs to run a racetrack. Everybody likes to armchair quarterback it and say, I could run that track better,
Well, and
right?
I think too, like when people post, like a purse from 1978, and they say, "Oh, we're only getting paid, $1,000 more than that now." It's like, well, the insurance has probably gone up 100,000 times from what it was at a short track in
right.
1978, just because there's so much more exposure to it now that the insurance companies have jacked up their rates on everything. But yeah, it's just simply not feasible to pay 100 times what they were paying in
Yeah,
1978 for a weekly show.
that's
Yeah,
facts.
we get notices every once in a while when somebody gets hurt or whatever else, and we try our darndest to make sure that we take care of them, obviously. And do we have accidents? Sure. But we obviously are trying our best to try to mitigate those issues, with new fence or, with better type of, material that we put on the racetrack that it's not rocky or whatever else is the worst thing. I mean, having a rock hit you in the head or anything anywhere or in the arm or whatever else at whatever miles an hour it's not pleasant. So, yeah, we do our best to try to mitigate those issues. Yeah.
What would be your dream event to hold at Cedar Lake if there was nothing to hold you back from putting it together? What would that event look like? What would that race look like? Uh, who would be some of the players involved?
Oh, I don't know how to answer that question. I have to think about that. Um, okay, so here's my initial reaction. I'll probably have another answer tomorrow. But if I could, okay, so if you're asking that question, I would like to go have a time machine. So think Back to the Future type stuff. Is that I would like to get Richard Petty, maybe his
Ooh.
dad, Dale Sr., um, Pearson. I'd like to get even some of the top fuel guys, like Big Daddy, Garlitz or whatever else. And I don't know. I'm just talking AJ Foyt, Tony Stewart. I'll take Kyle Larson, who's currently a phenomenal racer, obviously, as he's once in a generation racer. I want to see something like that. I would like to see something like that at Cedar Lake. That's what, and I would have them all, in their prime racing against each other and see what that would do. That would be my ideal once in a lifetime race. Yeah.
I think with AI these days, we could probably make that happen.
Yeah,
Make it look
probably.
like it
Yeah,
happened.
yeah.
Dan will get right on that for you.
Yeah.
Ah, shoot. I feel like I've just kind of like motored right through, Dan. I bet you probably had some questions you wanted to throw out there too.
No, I think you covered what I was going to ask about, like how Brad got involved in it and
Ah,
all
geez.
that
Now
good
I'm gonna
stuff.
get yelled at again because I never
Oh
let
no,
Dan talk.
I think I talked more this time, so that's good.
Okay. He
And I
rarely
waited till you were
talks.
on camera before I took a sip of beer, so that's good too.
Well, now they all know you're drinking, so you
Well,
might as well toast.
when are you gonna come up to Cedar Lake now?
All right. So if you want Toby to come with, I'll have to consult
Have
with
I met
him.
Toby? I don't think I've
I
met
don't think you've
Toby.
met
I
Toby
haven't
yet.
met Toby. You can leave
Uh,
Toby at home if this is
Middle
if it's better for you.
middle of June, or well, yeah, I think it'd be the Thursday this year. It's the Thursday before the Dixieland, so
June 12th for the Masters, you mean?
Like
uh,
God forbid you happen to not
I
be at
think
an asphalt track. I
I
mean,
think the Masters is probably maybe the 19th this year.
that's right in the middle of June. So yes, our
I
big special.
actually have your schedule
There
up.
you
Oh,
go.
that I
It's the
go.
12th.
The
Yeah.
12th. There
So
you
right in
go.
the middle of June is we have our Masters event, which is a USMTS and our local late model show that we have. That's right square in the middle of June. It's a 3-day event. And then at the end of June, it's a weird thing, but it's a weird dynamic. But at the end of June, we also have the World of Outlaw Sprint Cars, which is a 2-day event. That's the 28th and 29th, I believe it is.
Uh-huh.
And
Nope, 27th and 28th. Sorry.
oh, darn it, I was close.
I'm here to help.
So yeah, so that's a big event, and then of course you already mentioned the USA Nationals at the beginning of August, and then
Well, and then the big local show at the end of the year, the
big
legendary.
yeah, the big one that
They do a
caps off.
Thursday night
Yeah.
there too.
Now,
Hmm.
I would be remiss to actually not say this, that we also, I talked about a 2-day event that we have for the World of Outlaw Sprint Cars. We do have a 2-day event this year for the Richard Memorial. So the first weekend after Labor Day is a 2-day sprint car, because this will be the 25th year of having the Richard Memorial at Cedar Lake Speedway. So that's a 2-day event, sprint car 410 sprint car event at Cedar Lake Speedway.
The Cook Memorial?
No, the Richard Memorial.
It should be the Richard Memorial. It's first weekend after Labor Day. Should be like the 8th, 9th, I'm gonna say. I'm just guessing
Oh,
here.
Labor Day. I'm sorry. I'm
Yeah.
looking at the wrong thing. All right.
That's one of the bigger
Oh,
IRA
I see it
shows.
there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Friday, September 5th and Saturday, September 6th.
That's
So
okay.
The IRA sprints, which are based out of Wisconsin, that's their
Yep.
big weekend at Cedar Lake, and it's going to be 2 days this year. So that's pretty cool.
That is cool.
So
What's the Go ahead.
go ahead.
I was just going to say, what's the top speed for some of these divisions?
Ooh. I don't know speed, but didn't the Outlaws, didn't they, was a new track record this year like 11 7 or something?
Yeah, yeah.
11.7 seconds around a 3/8 mile. They're
That's
hauling them
hauling. That's hauling.
It's well over 100. I can tell you that. I don't think I have a speed exactly as the top speed that they're hitting the front stretch or back stretch. I would say it's probably in the 120 to 130 mile an hour range. But I
Wow.
obviously, with clay, is that if nobody understands this, if you've never understood, dirt track racing, there's this thing, we have a cushion, whatever else, and they tend to lean on that cushion. It's like a berm or like a curb that basically that gets built up over time with dirt, and with the sprint cars, especially because they have such a huge fat right rear tire, they can actually lean on that curb and really keep their momentum through the corner. So
If someone is coming, and I'm asking you these questions because I am more of an asphalt girl and I've had more asphalt guests. So if somebody's thinking, you know what, this sounds really cool, I want to go up and check it out.
yeah.
Obviously, they can go to cedarlakespeedway.com to check out your schedule. But what would you say are like the must-have items to put into your bag to come to the track to be prepared and not be caught with your pants down?
It all depends. Well, no, that's fair. I would say dirt track racing in and of itself is exactly what it is. It's dirt. So are you going to get dirty? Sure. Even sitting on the top row of the racetrack or the top suite that we have at the racetrack, or even quite frankly, if you're sitting inside, there is dirt everywhere. And does that mean it's going to be, are you going to get muddy? No, there's just these fine granules that seem to find themselves all over the place. So, I would say that what I would recommend for people, if you've never been to a racetrack that has dirt, is that you should probably bring goggles, or, you can just walk into Walmart or whatever kind of store and just grab yourself some goggles or whatever else. Just to be able to see and not get, not be, squinting or whatever else. If you're a true dirt racer, you don't care. You just sit there and you squint through it and you fight through it, and you'll get dirt in your beer and you still drink your beer. It doesn't matter. But that's probably the first and foremost thing. And, the other thing is probably earplugs, just like I would imagine at lacrosse or anywhere else or Elko, is that, you got to have these, simple things that you can put in your ears just to make sure that you're not getting your eardrums, blown out or whatever else. So,
Yeah. As somebody that wears contacts, I bring safety glasses with the pavement races because there's floor dry and stuff. So I've pretty much always got my safety glasses on. But the unique thing about Cedar Lake is there's bleachers on the front stretch and the back stretch. So if there's even a light breeze, all you have to do is go to the other side of the track and you don't get any dust on you.
That's true
You
too.
can just go sit on whichever side you want if the wind's blowing, and you're not going to get dusty. But the corporate suite is up really high, so it's really, really rare that I get dust up there when you come out. So you'll be okay.
Do I let you up there?
I pay for it.
Oh, okay.
You guys are hilarious. Hilarious. I felt like I had another question I was going to ask you yet too, Brad, about the
I
dirt.
like long walks on the beach.
Nice. Okay. Are you a dog or a cat person?
I'm neither.
Really?
Nope.
My dog likes them though.
Yeah, that's true.
Actually, Robin's dog likes them.
All right.
I don't any kind of animal, it does not matter to me. I know that I'm probably the antithesis of most people, but any kind of animal, I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's a cow. It's the same. It's on the same level for me. You could have whatever in your house. I don't care.
Okay. Except you'll eat a cow, probably not a
I
dog.
like, yeah. Yeah.
Well, never mind. We won't go there. Don't want to get kicked off YouTube.
Edit that part out.
Why
Yeah.
what else you want to know?
Well, there's a lot. I think we should do like an after dark episode with you
Ooh, we
because
should.
we had you at Dan Plan's Dolphin at Oktoberfest, and that was probably one of the best conversations.
I don't
But
remember. Do you
most of
remember
it,
Well, you signed up Karaoke Dave for
that-
one of the events, so
That's right.
I still need to follow up with him.
yeah.
That was a good
So-
time, and I drove all the way home that night too, by the way.
It was like 45 degrees, and I helped.
And I had a
take-
convertible.
I remember that.
help him set up the convertible to drive home at.
I had a stocking hat and gloves. It was awesome.
You're a nut. You're a nut. But we appreciate you coming on the Racing Nuggets podcast. Any final thoughts that you want to share?
I would say that if anybody watches this podcast, if they can find me on the racetrack on race day, just simply just come up and say hi and just say they saw this, and I would be more than happy to buy them a cold one or whatever else on me if they ever see it. So, now I know
do
now
I count?
you don't count, and nor do probably most people that come. But I mean, if it's new people, whatever, new people.
New
This-
people.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm more than happy to share any kind of thoughts or listen to people's thoughts too as well, because that's how we learn. So,
And where would you be at on race night?
Ooh,
Because
great
it sounds like
questions.
you're running around to different places.
yeah. So, sorry, I bumped the camera there. During the daytime, so on Saturday morning, I usually get out there probably, around 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock in the morning at the worst time. And we're usually starting work on the racetrack if we haven't done so already on Friday night. Whereas Friday night, because again, it's a dirt track. And I say that loosely for people that are watching this because it's actually clay. It's actually, we bring most of our material that we have for the racetrack, down from Superior, Wisconsin. And Superior is renowned for red clay. So we really enjoy that. We have a good relationship with a fellow named Butch Erickson. He lives up in Superior. Him and his wife Linda live up there, and they have always arranged to have us get clay from Superior area, and we truck it down, dump it on the racetrack, put it into our race facility, our racing surface, and we mix it. We do whatever we need to do it. That's the reason why we do that is because that's just it promotes phenomenal racing. It does. I don't have 2 lane race. We don't have 2 lanes. We have 3, sometimes 4. At most times I've ever seen is 5. And now that gets kind of dicey, of course, when you get in the corners, but it's really it promotes really fun racing. And that's probably one of the reasons why I probably am always probably more biased for dirt than I am for asphalt, because you very rarely see that type of 5 wide racing in asphalt. However, so I'll dovetail back to what I was saying is that I'll Saturday morning get there, work on the racetrack right away on Saturday morning, where we're farming it, we're getting it loose, we're putting moisture in the racetrack to try to actually give it some sort of grip throughout the night. And we're farming it, and then we're blading it to make sure it's nice and smooth as much as we can possibly do that. And then we'll be probably done roughly around, I would say around noon, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and we're done for the day, if you will, until race time. The only thing that we probably do is we kind of baby the racing surface with water. We'll just keep it nice and moist so that especially during the summer months, it
Moist.
usually
Are you one of those people that don't like moist?
Actually, I was just going to repeat that word because I do have friends who don't like
moist.
that word, and I love it.
Moist. Yeah.
Moist.
What's
There's
another? What's the other?
nothing
What's the
like
other
a
word that we
moist
always use?
track.
Moist.
Oh shoot, I forget. Anyway, yeah. So we're trying to keep the track moist, and then just to promote better racing, of course. And a lot of racers will argue with me is that when a track is moist, I keep using that word now, but it usually promotes that type of track will actually promote more, not as much passing. Let's put it that way. And so a dry track will
believe the term is hammer down one lane.
hammer down, hammer down. That's a great way to put it. Yeah. So as the night progresses, of course, the track tends to dry out, and we'll try to help it along with adding some moisture to it to keep that quick moisture in it, because as we all know, as the you leave, I want to have people leave the racetrack that they're happy they got to see a good show. And so at the end of the night, if it's the opposite happens is that when a track becomes too dry, and with the material that's in these guys' tires or gals' tires, is that the plastics and whatever else, they tend to put down rubber on the racetrack. And then we have a problem, because then it becomes definitely 1 lane. We call it lockdown racetrack, and then that's no fun at all. I want to see multiple lane racing. So
I don't think Brad gives himself enough credit, because after he's done with all his afternoon stuff, then he'll like drive the pace truck out and park it in the infield. He does the driver's meeting, and then he gets on his little scooter and drives around the other side of the track. And then, I think Jamie's doing the race directing now, but
yeah,
he'd either go around front, do the race directing, and then sometimes do the announcing too.
Yeah,
and then go down in the pits after the races are over and listen to everybody yell and scream at him.
There's usually only like 3 or 4. But
So during the races, though, where are you found at?
So I was going to allude to that. So he kind of buzzed me right through exactly what I do. So that's exactly what I do for racing time. Before the races, I'm usually can be found out and about, but during the race time itself, I'm usually up in the announcer's tower typically. And what I'm doing is, as much as I'm actually the I would say the event coordinator or event race director, if you will. Jamie Nutzman is upstairs. He's kind of doing the directing of getting guys lined up. I've got Dennis Brotzler, who's actually the scorekeeper. We have announcers up in the announcers tower, obviously, hence the term. And then also we have the people that are running the jumbotrons as well as our streaming. And so my role has been for the past maybe few years has been coordinating everybody that I just talked about, and working with everybody, saying, okay, we're going to we got to go to a commercial now, or we got to take a break now. Or if we're going to take a break now, what can I play on the jumbotrons? What can we put on for a commercial? When can my announcer start talking? And so that all gets kind of brought in at the same time, that I'm trying to direct people upstairs, saying, okay, basically I'm a production person. I'm just trying to direct the traffic here up on this upstairs. So
Are you streaming your own stuff every week then?
we will be. We have been for many, many years. We've been doing it through a third party. Yes, we have been doing that. We're actually taking it on this year ourselves. And so we're right square in the middle of actually purchasing equipment and doing all of that stuff, getting it all lined up for beginning of April. I'm not going to say that we're going to be very good at it because I think we're going to stumble a little bit, but at the same time, we've had some phenomenal meetings the past maybe month here of January, talking with people that are getting me, because I'm the naive one. I'm not taking any kind of credit, but we've hired really good people that know really, have really, concentrated efforts in the streaming world, in the tech world, in the computer world or whatever else, and as well as basically how things operate and with cameras and with technology and I feel that we've actually got a pretty good base right now. I'm just trying to, the next 2 months, we're going to try to filter all that stuff down that we can kind of all get that kind of all working together as we're, like I said, purchasing equipment, and then we're going to be broadcasting our own stuff on site to the racing world. We're going to be on Racing Dirt this year. So that is the podcast or the streaming service that we're going to be using. So that's what we're doing this year. And I'm looking forward to how that's going to work.
That's exciting stuff. You got a lot of irons in the fire, Brad.
It's kind of fun. And this is the fun part, yeah.
For sure. Well, thank you for joining us on the Racing Nuggets podcast. Dan, thanks for opening up your garage there for him to hang out in. Were you guys working on the old Nova there behind you?
No, not Brad. I was earlier today, but it was kind of a calamity of errors and looks like a murder scene on the other side, but I'm okay. But I think this will work good. Like if we have other local guests that want to be on the show, rather than having to get them to set up a Zoom call and stuff, we could just come over here and do it this way.
I know a few technically challenged folk that would probably take you up on that offer.
Yeah.
We can talk smart after this.
We can talk smart.
Yeah.
We could talk smart right now.
The refrigerator is right over there.
I wish I was up there with you.
Well, by the way, the track is in Wisconsin, just FYI. So we do have plenty of your, refreshments.
Straight up 35. Just get on 35 and go north. You'll be there.
I'm going to go this year. I am. Especially if Dan Plan's going to let me sit in his VIP booth.
It's a corporate suite.
Oh, the corporate suite. All right.
They did build new benches for me several years ago, so that was kind of nice too.
Nice.
Chris Heinbund did that.
Very nice. Well, I come with my own cushion because it's attached to my back end, so I don't think I'll need anything with me. But really do appreciate you, Brad, coming on with us. Thanks so much.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.